This episode is powered by Act Now Education. Go to www.actnoweducation.com for free comprehensive educational resources and opportunities for active duty, veterans, military spouses, and children. Warriors, fall in. It's time for formation. Thank you for joining us today. I'm joined with an Army combat veteran who's not only an influencer for our women veterans, but she's also a mother of 5. She was stationed in Germany while in the Army and served a 9-month deployment in Afghanistan as an aviation operations specialist. While serving in the military, our guest today suffered a major setback when she was involved in a terrible accident that caused traumatic brain injury, also known as TBI. That would eventually lead to her ending her military career, unfortunately. Today we're joined with Miss Althea Willliams, who is the founder of She Vets It, which is a support group for women veterans that was born from 3 things: the growing issues facing our women veterans today. She wanted to help other women veterans overcome their obstacles that she also encountered. And She Vets It was also created to harness as a therapy mechanism for her own battle with post-traumatic stress. Today we're going to talk about her organization's mission, the many issues facing women veterans, and learn a little bit more about Althea. So Althea, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi KP. Thank you for having me.
The honor is all mine. I really appreciate you joining us and giving us your time because I know you're extremely busy. Before we get started, can you tell us the main mission of She Vets It?
Wow, the main mission of She Vets It is to normalize the presence of women veterans and the voices of women veterans, just to make people know that women veterans serve too. Because many times when we go to the hospital, we go places, people always assume that the spouse is the veteran and not the woman. So that tells me, people forget that we serve too.
A number of women don the uniform and serve our country, but how did you find the strength to create a place for women veterans to find and provide support to one another?
Wow, it actually came from a point of where I was like kind of in a dark space of, after getting injured, not quite being the same. I knew at that time that community was going to be something important to me because I was dealing with, anxiety, depression, PTSD. I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. And I knew that I needed to be around women that could relate to what it's like to experience trauma. Also, being a veteran, a lot of times we have different, injuries or things that are going on with us. I wanted to make sure I surround myself with women that could relate. And so that, again, community was very important to me because I wanted to make sure that I held myself accountable, but to be well, and also that I'm there for someone else to be well as well.
So was it tough for you to get started?
Yes, because I really didn't choose this route. I didn't even know I was going to do this at all. It was just, like I said, I was in a really dark place, getting injured. I couldn't remember people. I would lose my purse. I would lose my credit card. I'd go to the store. And I think like in maybe a couple of months, I had lost my credit card like 5 times. I had to order it back to back. So I knew something was going on. But like I said, it really caused me to be in a really dark place, so that I knew that, I need to find out what's going on with me. Once I went to Walter Reed to actually get the training, the brain therapy, seeing a neurologist, dealing with mental health, that kind of helped with the symptoms. And so I kind of knew what my triggers were. I started learning, okay, don't get too stressed, know your limits, body boundaries. Those things kind of helped me deal with my symptoms a lot better. So now I know, okay, don't do too much. This is your limit. And so I know if I go past that limit, I know it's going to cause me to have different symptoms. But That is probably one reason. Once I got through that, I was able to figure out, you know what, I really, really need to be around women, veterans that understood, because I didn't think that my civilian friends would get it, And so, and I found that being around other women when I was in the WTU, which is a warrior transition unit, being around other women veterans that had injuries and different issues going on, I knew that I wasn't by myself. And that's what community is about, is being around people you can relate to and knowing that you're not by yourself. And when you isolate and you're not in a community setting, or you're not around people that you can relate to, you feel like you're by yourself. You don't feel like you feel like you're the only person going through something.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was so much involved with TBI specifically and all those things that you mentioned. Imagine other folks out there who aren't diagnosed and they go undiagnosed and they have to deal with all those things on their own. You're talking about triggers, you're talking about just navigating that whole thing of fully understanding yourself. I could not imagine what that must be like to try to figure that out on your own, not just through a specialist or a doctor, but then also having that sense of no community. And
Hmm.
that must be a very, very dark place for you to be. And can you just really briefly talk about what that was like? Was it like a going from a dark room to the sunlight once you started learning these things about yourself?
Well, I would say that I was going through a mourning process too, from the joining the military, had my MBA, go getter, very sharp, independent, and then getting an injury where half the time I couldn't remember things or remember people. And so that became really, really tough, that I couldn't even trust my own thinking or own memory, where I was so used to being the go-to. And it got to the point where people, like, they'll ask me, hey, do you know where, never mind, do you know where, blah, 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 because and I could see it in other people because they knew that I didn't remember. And so it was just so hard to, man, like I said, I went through a mourning process of accepting that I had not a disability, but I had a different ability. And that part took some time. Now, before, every time I would lose something or every time something would happen, I would get emotional. It would just make me cry that I left my purse, or I left my credit card, or this happened, or I didn't remember this, or someone came up to me and they were excited to see me, and they're like, "Oh, we served in the military together. We were stationed here," and I couldn't remember, but they were excited to see me, and that really bothered me. And I remember being in the car with my NCO, and I was just crying because I was like, "I just can't believe this is going on." And she was like, "You need to go to the doctor and tell him everything that's going on." And so, like I said, it really was even the point where I was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment. I went to the doctor's appointment. I took the train, and I was the go-to person on catching the train. Like, people knew in Germany, Althea, she knows how to navigate around here. Went to uh went to my appointment. I did not get home till the next morning. I
Mm.
was en route to Austria. I actually spent the night in the Munich train station. I was confused, didn't know where I was going. And so there I knew something was wrong. But this was months after my accident, because they didn't diagnose me with a traumatic brain injury right away. I just knew something wasn't right.
And you just slept right there in the station on a bench?
I yeah, I was at the train station. Yeah, I slept. Matter of fact, I was just sharing with somebody today. There, I want to say I was at a Starbucks until they were closing, maybe one or something crazy in the morning or something. And one of my good friends, Jackie, I don't even know if she remembers, but she's the one who kind of kept calling to kind of figure out where I was at. And she somehow I was able to, by the time I could figure out how to get home or where I was at, uh, I actually it was too late to go home. So I had to kind of stay because I couldn't figure out where I was at, and so I had to kind of stay there, and I ended up being there with some homeless people.
Wow. That sounds like that was probably one of your lowest points. And, after having served in Afghanistan, and this was after your accident where you had TBI, can you tell us a time, well, can you tell us a little bit more about how you ended up pulling yourself up off the ground and overcoming your depression, your anxiety, and your stress that you were feeling at that time?
I would say, like I said, I was really, really going through trying to figure out this new person that I become, like a person I never met before. I didn't know this person who couldn't remember things. And so I remember, my lowest point was I just really just didn't think I had any purpose anymore. I just thought my life was over. I was alive, but I felt like my purpose in life was like, it was done. I can't remember. I'm like, everyone's taking me to my doctor's appointments. I couldn't remember this. And so I just felt really useless. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. And so, I really just didn't want to be around. I was here, but I wasn't here. And so I remember watching the movie The Shack. I'm sorry, it's making me a little. I watched the movie Shack, and I remember the gentleman. I want to say he lost his daughter, and I don't want to tell the whole story, but he lost his daughter. And in this movie, he goes on this journey with this conversation with God about why things were happening in his life. And it was like I was so like the questions that he had with God, I was having the same question. And I was like, and then God was taking him on this journey. But in this movie, I was going on the same journey because some of the questions I was asking, why, when I was in Afghanistan, some of the people that I knew didn't come back. When you see people hug their families, but and all go to Afghanistan, and then some people don't come back. So it's a lot of those different questions, not only my accident or different things. I prayed about joining the military, and then all of this is happening. And I'm like, I prayed about it, you confirmed, I went to church, I got a confirmation I'm supposed to be in the military, and then I go through all of this. And so once I watched that movie, it opened my eyes. I went through this 8-step program with women veterans, and we talked about our traumas from childhood to present day. And when we went through those, and we cried pretty much every day. We were. It was just 8 weeks of just sharing and talking about the things that we went through, and it was a guided process through mental health program. And so when I got out, I was like, I need to get a community of women. Actually, I wasn't trying to do, she vets it. I just wanted a meetup group of women that I could kind of meet and know that they're veterans, and just go to the movies or do this, or just a woman girls group. And I did it on the meetup app, and that's how I got it started. And so once I start meeting people, we start doing things together. And then this actor in Hollywood contacted me and invited my little group to the Kennedy Center, the John F. Kennedy Center in DC. He was doing a live taping on ABC, and he was giving proceeds to Wounded Warrior programs, not to me, but to Wounded Warriors. But he invited my group, and I'm like, why my little group? Like, I'm just trying to hang out. I'm just trying to be with a community of women that I get. So that kind of pulled me into where I'm at now.
Wow, that's fascinating to hear how it all started, but not just that, but fascinating to hear the personal side of it as well. And just recently, I had some complications from COVID, and I was talking to another fellow veteran buddy of mine, and I was telling him about it, and I said, "Oh, but it's okay. It's just such and such." And he laughed and he goes, "Oh, you know what? I always hear that from veterans is, oh, don't worry about it. It's just such and such, and I'm gonna drive on." And we have that stubborn resiliency about us sometimes that is sometimes our worst enemy. And for you to have the courage to look within yourself and realize, hey, I need some help here. I highly respect that about you, Althea. And I'd like to ask you, from your perspective of being in this space, what are some of the major issues facing our women veterans today?
Well, things that I noticed and I've heard about is that women veterans, we have a high rate of suicide. And then we also have we're the fastest segment of the homeless population. And so it just doesn't surprise me. Um, and for some reason, as a woman, I really, really wanted to really kind of build that community of women veterans because we're so unique. We're not like our brothers in arms because for one, male soldiers, they go, it's even without being a soldier and just being a civilian, the wife usually take care of the kids and the husband go to work or the husband go to war or the husband goes out and the wife is home. But it's a different situation when the wife goes to war and the kids are away from the mother. The kids are already socialized to be away from the dad. The dad is the provider. He goes out. The mother do too. But for a woman to leave her child, the way we process things, we're more emotional. And so when you're at war, for me, it was hard for me to call home because I'm like, I'm going to call home. I don't know. He's probably not doing the things that, how I would do it. And it would stress me to even want to call home where everyone else would be calling. But for me, not a trigger, but it really stressed me to call home because I knew that I couldn't be there to
Hmm.
help in certain things. So that was a big deal for me. So, and I'm sure it is for our males. So I don't want to downplay what our male veterans go through because they miss their families as well. I'm just saying I think that we as women we may process it differently from a maternal standpoint.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly. I would have to definitely agree with that, especially you have this human being growing in your body for 9 months. How could you not have that connection? So I completely understand. And you mentioned the suicide rates and the homeless rates for women facing our women veterans today. For anyone out there that is suffering in silence with either one of those two, what advice would you provide to help them to identify and help face their own demons?
I would say get connected. Get connected. I would say from my experience that I went through everything I went through to be here, to help someone else. And I would say everything in our lives happen for a reason. And sometimes even the worst things that happen for us we can use it if we turn it around and figure out what our purpose is. I think that helps because when have a community and you are connecting with different people, you you feel like you're part of something. And that's what community is finding people you can relate to. And I would say getting out the military too, transitioning out the military. Sometimes that's when those rates are high, homelessness, not having the proper transition. I would say outside of the homelessness part is get a chance to know yourself, reconnect with who you are, because being in the military is so easy to lose who you are. It's so easy to lose you, so fall in love with yourself again. Take yourself to lunch. Give yourself flowers for those small wins. Don't wait for your boyfriend, your whoever. or your girlfriend, whoever, to give you flowers. Give yourself flowers. Celebrate yourself, your small wins. When you went somewhere, when you don't go out in public and but you went and you did something that you normally wouldn't do, give yourself something for that. Those small wins. Oh, you know what? They triggered me, but guess what? I didn't tell them like it like I should have told them. But just those little small wins. Just do that. Just like I said, fall in love with yourself. And homelessness. There's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of programs out there for mental health. I see a counselor every week, and I'm not ashamed to say that. And sometimes people think when you see a counselor, it's always talking about the dark things. Sometimes you could just talk to a counselor. Sometimes my counselor, I'm talking to her about sometimes light things like, am I going to go back to school, or am I going to do, or the things that which she vets it. I'm like, I remember when I started, she vets it, and I was telling her, I don't know if I could do this. This is too much for me. It's just, I don't know if I could do this. And she said, well, let me tell you this. What if you don't do it and you're just at home? Then what? And I was like, you got a
Mhm.
point. So she helped me process through things to lead me towards my purpose. So it wasn't just talking about medication or where I am mentally, but it was also processing things through life. So, seek counseling. If you need help, it's okay. Don't do it alone. Try to find a community of women, or not necessarily just women, but if you're a male soldier, find people you can relate to. Get in a group. If you like drawing or painting or whatever, rock climbing, hiking, reconnect with those things that you love to do so that you can surround yourself with people. And once you start surrounding yourself with people, somehow it'll spark that purpose that you have, the things that you used to love. That stuff may start coming back. And so don't do it alone. Community is everything. And connect with some of the VFWs, the DAVs, and all these different military organizations that have resources out there for you. So, if you need financial assistance, I think Combine Arms, they provide resources for soldiers. So if you are homeless, you need mental health, or you have Wounded Warrior Project. There's tons of programs out there, and that's what I do with She Vets It. Is I connected with Combat Arms to be a resource. So when people, I had someone call this week and their car broke down, um, and another person who's homeless. So what I did is I plugged their names into Combat Arms and gave them their information. Combat Arms contacted them to make sure that they connect them with the right resources.
Wow. So
That was a
you
long one.
no, that was great because at the end of the day, it's good to sort of be the center point of referencing, and pointing people in the right direction. They're looking at you as sort of a navigation or a compass, and hey, I don't know where to go. And kudos to them for asking to begin with, somebody,
Mm-hmm.
say, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know which way to go. Can you tell me where to go? But they're looking at you as somebody who is heavily networked and would know
Mm-hmm.
how to point them that direction. So that's great that you're doing that as well as She Vets It. And I just want to let everyone know out there, because I can imagine that you went through the same thing too without asking you. A lot of times for military folks within the military community, because I'll say mil spouses too, it's not cool to not be okay. And I want to tell you that it's okay to not be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
that you really have to recognize that within yourself, just like Althea mentioned that she had to do within, because if not, you're going to drive yourself absolutely crazy and you're going to lose yourself. And it takes a lot of courage to actually come to the table and say, look, I need to talk to someone, because I know I can speak from my time in the military, and I'm interested to hear your side of it as well. But they used to kind of talk about people who would go seek help. And I'm talking about commanders, NCOs. they would say, "Oh, well, such and such is, he's claiming he's got such and such," and you really need to put stuff all that inside and don't worry about it. This is the reason why we have the 22 a day, because that stuff catches up with you. Did you experience the same type of environment where folks were trying to compartmentalize and put that stuff inside and continue on and try to be resilient without processing loss or trauma?
I would say so, especially when you said that, what came to mind is being in Afghanistan, and after one of our aircrafts went down, I just realized that when we had 5 days apart, we had two aircrafts that went down. And I just thought to myself, you really don't have time to process anything. It's like you go through the process, the ramp ceremony, you do everything. But guess what? The mission continues. But all in fairness, we're a military force. And in all fairness, it has to continue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're at war. We
Hmm.
don't have time to we have a team that will uh that will seek our I'm gonna say they'll go back and get our loss, but the mission continues. So yes, it's just part of the culture of being in the military. And like you said, the tiny heart syndrome, where like you have a little tiny heart when you are seeking help and something's wrong, and then when something happens, we're like, oh my goodness, how did I.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I definitely could relate to that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that it's that way, and I think it's still that way today. That we have this resiliency about us that we're fine. We don't need any help, and we at some point we're going to have to break that and take care of ourselves and take care of our own mentality, because I think it took me years before I was actually mentally back here, and I felt like I was in a sleepwalk almost during my entire deployment, is how I would
Mhm.
best describe it. And Althea, I want to also touch on your transition out of the military. Would you mind talking to us
Mhm.
about how your transition took place? Were you able to find a job when you got out of the military? Were you able to transition properly? Looking back at how things panned out for you.
I would say I didn't transition like your typical veteran who may have just regularly retired. I was medically retired. And when I ended up getting the traumatic brain injury and was hospitalized, they put in paperwork for me to go to a WTU, which is a warrior transition unit. And that was like in the DC area. So I spent like 2 years there, seeking medical help. So not only did I have the TBI and the PTSD, but I also fractured my mid back. So I had a lot of different things going on. So, as my doctor would say, I went to Costco and got everything.
Wow.
So I can laugh now, but
Right.
back then I probably would have cried if he. I probably teared up when he said it, but so but I I would say that they actually took me through the process. I had every day, instead of me going to, when I fell into formation, it was like, you got a doctor's appointment, you got to see your neurologist. They had a shuttle that would take me to my doctor's appointment. If my husband couldn't take me, or if someone couldn't take me, they made sure I was able to get there. My place of duty was my medical appointments. So when I got out, that's where the I was like, also still during that time I was going through the mourning process of the new me. Now what? You know, I joined the military, and at some point I was going to get out, get my PhD. I was going to go to school, and go to school and get, like I said, get the PhD, and maybe go back and run a chamber of commerce and write and do this and that. But I'm in a space where I have a brain injury. You know, I get, you know, I get tired a lot easier. My anxiety causes me anxiety when I'm doing too much. So your 60% is my 100%. So when too much is going on, too much noise and too much this, I get anxious. And so I had to learn before I could even jump somewhere else. I had to learn what is my baseline. And then not only that, but I deal with chronic pain or migraines. So dealing with migraines, I was like, oh man, who is gonna, when I have really bad days, how many jobs are gonna allow me to have bad days without having to let me go? And so with me doing the She Vets It on Clubhouse and whatever, I can not be feeling good and I can introduce a guest and I can close the mic and be like, whew, I don't feel good. Like one day I was doing the Instagram live and my back was aching. And as soon as I was off, I was like, whew, okay, I can I can rest because my back is aching. So those are, doing so the social media platform allowed me to be able to still connect people, still deal with my chronic issues without people really knowing. Because a lot of times people don't know I may look like, which we call the invisible wounds. People see you and they think, oh, she looks good. She looks like she don't have any problems, but they have no idea what I've dealt with during the daytime. They don't know that I just left my purse at the store and I had to go back and get it, or this happened or that happened. They don't know the backstory. They just know, hey, I'm here.
Yeah,
So that my transition has been a constant. I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning who I am. That's why I said learn to date yourself, love yourself again, find out who you are, find out the things you used to love to do outside of the military, because the military took over so much of your life. Learn who you are. And so other than that, I just use this space, the social media space, to still utilize and keep my mind going and to still be of help to someone that may see what we're doing and say, hey, I could go to counseling. Hey, there she had a guest speaker on her platform that really said something that kept me from wanting to take my life. And someone did tell me that. They said, they were in a real dark place until they start joining Clubhouse and being part of my group. So I get a lot of that all the time. So if I do nothing else, that's that's been my transition. And I don't get paid to do anything that I'm doing. This is all volunteer. I just, this is just doing, just staying, utilizing my gifts of connecting people.
yeah. And I would say you definitely have a gift to that because I've seen you open multiple rooms. I've seen you on Instagram Live just get something started, and everyone comes to the yard, and they're tuning in to listen to you speak, and they're tuning in to listen to you interview and conversate with folks. So you do an absolutely amazing job with that, Althea. And going back to what you mentioned about your transition, it's actually refreshing to hear somebody who, it sounds like for the most part you were taken care of when it comes to transitioning out properly. I do know a lot of folks who transition out and they just check the block on everything just to get out of the military. I was one of those folks that I didn't take the out processing seriously. And because I was a captain, I was able to just kind of bypass some things. And because I said, I'm fine, I don't need any of this stuff, I just want to get out. And my phrase, if I had a phrase to come up with about my transition out, it would be, I got this. And I didn't have it at all. Like my transition, my first job, I ended up quitting in the first year. I didn't really seek any counseling. I didn't want to get service connected, nothing. So it's refreshing to hear that you were, it sounds like for the most part, your leadership took care of you. And it's funny how you mention, you've gotten some feedback from folks who you've helped out just through your community. I was talking to someone yesterday. I was talking to Lita Citroen, and I've never met her. I've met you in person. We've actually had lunch and whatnot. And I haven't met her in person, but I feel like just through the clubhouses and through the conversations that we've had that I know her like personally. And it's so funny how I'm sure you feel the same way about a lot of your community too. There's folks that you've never met before in person, but because you talk and because you talk about some deep issues, you really get that connection. And I think that's what's really important about She Vets It, that folks who are not part of She Vets It needs to understand that just because it's virtual, the fact that you're connecting with folks that are sharing the same type of past experiences as you is major, major as far as being able to make that good connection, that good network connection. So thank you so much for having She Vets It. And while we're on the topic about She Vets It, can you talk a little more about the influence and the reach that you have within the military community? I understand that you've recently been featured on some shows, and how did all that come about?
Well, like I think I shared with you before, I just, every day I just started, consistently since January, just getting on consistently, doing the same rooms consistently. And I guess after a while, people start, asking, like, hey, could you speak or could you? So the last 2 weeks have been able to speak in person. Uh, Quite a few events. Today, I was able to speak with the Volunteers of America out here. So I was able to kind of just share what I do and why community is so important. And in the audience were individuals that were part of they're veterans, and some of them were part of the homeless population. They're in transition of, finding a place. So I also invited another woman veteran, connected her with this platform to be able to speak and showing how you can actually uh, buy outfits that are inexpensive to get a job. You can. I had a woman that came in and she had a blazer. She only spent $3.49, and it was a Ralph Lauren blazer from the thrift store. So when you just showing them how you can still be thrifty and still look professional, just tips that I needed to know too. And I was like, oh, thank you for sharing that. So I brought her with me as a speaker. And so we pretty much shared why community is so important. And then there were other organizations that shared what they do as well. And then I think a couple of days ago, or yeah, I also talked to a group of ladies, professional ladies, and just sharing my story, my military story. And my thing is just to hope to inspire people to know that even throughout our trauma and the different things that we have going on in our lives, we still have purpose. So even though I can't, I'm not going to say I can't because words are powerful, but although I have a different ability, and maybe it might be too much for me to maybe run a chamber of commerce like I used to, but I still have transferable skills that I can utilize. I can be on this space and say, hey, sis, you know what? You can do this. Or guess what? I love what you're doing. They would love to hear you speak. So the city of Dallas asked me to if I knew some ladies that would be able to speak on their platform for a webinar and talk about life before, during, and after the military. So I said, okay, hey. So I gathered a couple of ladies and said, hey, they want to do a webinar. You guys are interested. I knew some of them have different skills and backgrounds. So we all joined in on a webinar. So just bringing women together and pushing people out there, because at the end of the day, it's not really about me. It's about the community. So I just started talking because I really like to be behind the scenes. So my thing is really pushing our women veterans, even our male veterans out there. If I hear of opportunities, I'm going to share it with people that are within my sphere of influence. And even if that opens a door for somebody to, get their business going or get that job, or hey, it sparked something to like, oh, it was something about her speaker that just made me want to seek help. I'm now using boundaries. I'm taking care of myself. I'm letting go of toxic relationships. Then that is what I'm doing. I'm at home and um, I still have purpose. I still am helping out. I'm still contributing to society.
Yeah, I really want to give you a shout out because you connected me with the real, and I was able to do a 30-second Veterans Day shout out, which was absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you doing that for me. And as far as She Vets It, you only did 2 shows recently, but I really feel like there's more to come for She Vets It and yourself, Althea, because you're out there so much hustling, and you literally go through a lot just to open these rooms up. And I know because I used to host the Mill Pact. Well, I still do. I just haven't had time to do it because of life and everything going on. But I know what it takes to do what you do, and it is tough. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know what well, you must have like batteries, Energizer batteries in your back somewhere, because sometimes you're up and you're doing things, and I'm like, wow, Althea, she never sleeps. And I gotta say, you're a very dynamic person, and I'm very fortunate to be part of your circle, and I thank you for that. As far as the organization, She Vets It,
Thank you.
where do you see She Vets It in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you want this to go?
The next 5 to 10 years, hopefully a nonprofit where we're able to actually host job fairs or bring in speaker series as we are actually doing on Clubhouse. Uh, offer scholarships to entrepreneurs, those that are transitioning out the military. Also, maybe scholarships for dependents or family members that are want to go to college. Because when I got injured, everything stopped for my family. I was in Germany, and my kids kind of, postponed some things because of me. And so, because they didn't know where I was at health wise. And so, I know I'm not the only person that have to deal with that. I know there's other family members that are sacrificing. Again, families serve too. And so I definitely want to make sure we take care of our families. Also, let me see, maybe doing more a formal podcasts, maybe doing more formal podcasts where I have more resources and more speakers that are you know, that would be very resourceful for our veteran program. So I definitely just want to just be a major resource, even if I'm just a visionary person and then there's someone else running it. I would love to just be the vision and have someone else really take it, take the wheel and go with it. Even after I'm no longer here, that She Vets It would surpass um, me, my existence, and other families and veterans would be able to benefit from an organization like She Vets It.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're starting a legacy, and I think at the end of the day, it's important that folks out there know that they're not alone and they shouldn't feel alone, and that's what your community is all about. And I certainly think with you at the helm that She Vets It is going to be creating more media content in general, not just podcasts, but like videos, and who knows what's going to come out here in the next. Who would have thought 15 years ago that we would have what we have today? It's absolutely amazing. When I got out of the military, and I say this almost every freaking podcast because folks don't understand context, that when I got out of the military, MySpace was the hottest thing out there. There was no LinkedIn, there was no Facebook, and you remember, right? But we forget,
You're telling your
right?
age,
We
MySpace.
we forget, like, so, and who knows in the next 10 years like what's going to come out, and what's going to be the next hot thing. But I certainly think, like I said, with you at the helm, She Vets It is going to continue to grow because you're such a hustler. So
Oh, thank
no,
you.
really, I'm being genuine when I say that, Althea. You're an amazing person, and if anyone out there is interested in contacting you, how can they get a hold of you? What social media platforms are you on where they can follow you or connect with you?
I'm on all social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I also have a website, shevetsit.com. And especially if those are, organizations that would like to speak in our clubhouse, we're always looking for speakers that add value to our community. If you are on Instagram, it's going to be actually, it's a little different. It's going to be she underscore vets underscore it.
Okay, and I'll make
And so that those are ways you can
I'm going to make
contact
sure I
me.
put all your different contacts in the show notes to include your website. So anyone listening out there, scroll down to the bottom of the podcast and you can see the different ways that you can contact Althea. If you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. Go into the description. You'll see all the different links on how to get a hold of Althea if you'd like to connect with her. Definitely stop in on her clubhouse and listen to some of her rooms. They're very powerful. I have found myself personally getting choked up with some of the conversations that I've had with some of the folks that she's had as guests. I can say that that doesn't happen normally. I'm usually rock hard, resilient, strong, right, veteran. But making those connections through Althea and her rooms at times has gotten me a little more emotional than I wanted to go. But just to summarize everything out, Althea, for anyone out there that's listening to this podcast, do you have anything that you'd like to say to them before we finish up the show today?
I do. I would like to let them know that you do have purpose. You're here for a reason, and just tap into those gifts. Get a chance to know who you are. Um, you know, being in the military, we sacrifice so much, and we put the military first, even before we even put our family before ourselves. And so many times we're being pulled and torn in so many directions. I think at this time, this chapter in our lives is to reintroduce yourself to yourself, even if that's looking in the mirror, the things you like, you don't like, and give yourself grace for not being perfect. Give yourself grace for all the things that you've gone through, and you're still here. So definitely, you have purpose, and I just want to let people know that even on our different abilities, we can still use our gifts, and so we could find a way to use the gift that God has put in us.
Amen. 100%. Definitely, we are our own worst critics at times, and we think that we don't have this and that, but in reality, everyone is short on certain things, and it's important for us to figure out how to put the good things that we have together to make ourselves love ourselves, but also be efficient and be effective and be happy with ourselves. So I love the message that you have. And I got to say that this podcast today has been awesome. I appreciate you sharing a piece of you and your experiences, everything from joining the military to having your TBI issue with literally blanking out one night and staying at a train station in a foreign country. That's absolutely insane. And then having the courage to pick yourself up, but then not only that, but have the courage to create a platform to help others who might be suffering in silence. And I am so thankful and fortunate to be part of your circle. Althea, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and everything that you do. And for anyone out there that's listening,
Thank you.
anyone out there that's listening, please connect with Althea through her social media platforms. She is definitely someone who is going to be taking She Vets It to the next level. And for everyone out there, appreciate you listening to us today on the Morning Formation. As for Althea and myself, Warriors, fall out.